Eye-catching 43-foot-tall golden spike resembles what was used ceremonially to mark the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, and this artwork honors the tens of thousands of workers who built it. For the last 28 months, Kentucky artist Dal Bloomberg created the piece. He says the artwork on the monument tells the stories of the laborers, many of whom are immigrants, who worked tirelessly to connect the country coast to coast.
So many stories here. So many stories. Some we know, big names. Some we'll never know, swinging pickaxes in the desert.
As the 8,000-pound spike embarks on its cross-country tour, it'll be used to educate people about the work that was done more than 150 years ago.
We are one nation, one union that is tied together, and the railroad was a great way of making that happen.
As a former educator, Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman says it's important to tell the whole story.
The people who built it that worked extremely hard, sometimes in terrible conditions. Some were manipulated during their time, maybe, and forgotten during ours. But this monument aims to correct that.
Members of the Golden Spike Foundation were in attendance. They say after the tour, the spike will be permanently installed at Golden Spike Park at Reeder Ranch in Utah.
It's a story of visionary American business people. It's a story of government and private industry working together to accomplish something that neither could accomplish alone.
The monument will travel across the U.S. to Brigham City, Utah. Once it leaves here, it'll make 9 stops along the original Transcontinental Railway route. In Lexington, Mariah Conjito, WKYT.